Welcome back to another episode of the Makor College Experience Parsha podcast. We are in season 2, episode 19. This week's Parsha is Parshas Bamidbar. We are getting close to Shavuos. Today is also a big day. Today is a very special Erev Shabbos. It's Yom Yerushalayim. So a lot is happening today and a lot is happening this week. A lot of themes converge, which means they'll come together this week from Bamidbar, Yom Yerushalayim, and Shavuos. We're going to talk a little bit about that for a couple minutes. Parshas Bamidbar starts off. Hashem tells Moshe Rabbeinu, it's time to count the Jews. We know that Moshe, Aaron, and a leader from each shevet counted all the Jews. There's something special about counting things that you hold near and dear to your heart. I know that whenever my daughter goes to sleep, my wife watches the baby monitor like a hawk, because it's something very special, something very delicate, something very special, something you check on constantly. Rashi says Hashem held the Jews so close to his heart, he wanted to count them again to show how much he loved them. How much he loved them individually, and then also how much he loved them all together. And in the Midbar, we all came together. You know, we were special in our own way, and we still are special in our own ways, but together, as one, we're something really special. The Medrash says that Yerushalayim comes from two words, Yira and Shalem. It says that Avraham called the place Yira, but Shem called the place Shalem. So together, Hashem called it Yerushalayim, bringing the two together. Now, on Shavuos, we celebrate getting the Torah. And before we got the Torah, on Shavuos, rather, in about a week, before we get the Torah, we have to read the part about Hashem counted us individually. We have to read the part about how we each were counted and made special. We can't come to a point where we can recognize and love each other unless we first are able to recognize how we each individually are special. After that, we come together, we get the Torah, we realize that the entire nation is also special, and then ultimately later on we get Yerushalayim, and all come together in Yerushalayim for something really special. In a way, when we said Har Bayis B'Yadenu, after the 6-day war and we got Yerushalayim back, which we celebrate today on Yom Yerushalayim, in a way, what we got back was our feeling of togetherness again. And that is something that's incredibly, incredibly valuable and special, and we have to hold near and dear to our hearts. That not only are we individually special, but together we are also special. You can't have one without the other, which is why we had to have time in the desert alone. Because when you have time in the desert alone, who do you have to rely on? No one except Hashem. You had to have that time of leaning on to Hashem. Hashem, I'm special too. I need to lean on to you for food, water. And then we also had to have time later on in Yerushalayim, where we're able to be all together and special. Time at time at Har Sinai rather, where we're all together and special. Coming back to Yerushalayim later on, all together and special. You can't have one without the other. And with that, I would like to call up our first guest. We have a very special guest in the studio this week. Dr. Glicksman, the director of our program, is here with us this week. We don't normally get such a schus. Baruch Hashem, today we have such a schus. So welcome, Dr. Glicksman, to the studio.
Thank you. This is my first appearance on the Makor Parsha podcast after many years of production. So, good to be here.
Dr. Glicksman, you were in Yerushalayim recently.
Yes.
For Pesach. Now, I remember, I haven't been in Yerushalayim, unfortunately, in a few years, but I remember the feeling of being in Yerushalayim when you go to the Kotel or when you're walking down Yafo and you see a neighbor that you normally maybe give a quick hi to in shul. When you see them in Eretz Yisrael, there's a different feeling of Ahavas. It's like, wow, we saw each other, and you like give your neighbor that you don't normally see, you give him a big hug. Or like, wow, the guy you see in shul who you may just give a quick Achavas to. When you see him in Yerushalayim, there's a feeling of togetherness that you don't feel in other places of the world. Why do you think that is?
It's an excellent question. And I think that part of it has to do with the fact that when we go to Eretz Yisrael, we're reminded that we're all part of the same family. Like, when you see a neighbor on the street in America, in Europe, in Australia, wherever you are, so like he's your neighbor, and you know him, you see him, like you greet him like a neighbor. Hi, how are you? It's good to see you. How's everything? Fine. But when you see a family member that you haven't seen in a long time, it's a different kind of greeting. And when you see somebody in Eretz Yisrael, and it's somebody that you might have forgotten that you're all part of the same family. Like, you might be seeing them as a family member for the first time in a long time. So you greet them more like a family member.
So it's almost like you're seeing them with a different pair of glasses on.
Yeah, very much so. Because, it's similar in a way to the idea that, often when you have something in common, and this is something we've discussed with the Makor guys, in a whole bunch of different classes over the years. But when you, what are friendships based on?
Common interests.
Yes, common interests. That's what makes a good friendship, right? See, that proves that the Makor guys knew that. We talked about it in class. So we often talk about the idea.
That was not staged, by the way.
Yes,
no, that was not staged for all of our listeners.
So we've spoken about the idea that here at YU, there might be people that you don't talk to, right? Because they're in a different shiur, because they're in a different program, because they're in Sims instead of Makor, instead of YC, because they're on a different floor. There are a lot of people around that you don't really ever come in contact with, you don't really talk to. But if you went to the University of Maryland for some reason, right? If that's where you chose to go, there would be people here that you don't feel you have anything in common with, that you'd be eating Friday night dinner at the Hillel house with, because suddenly your Judaism would be what you have in common, right? That's what would create the relationship. Whereas in YU, when everybody's Jewish, that common denominator kind of gets canceled out, and you go to the next level. But I think when we go to Eretz Yisrael, we're reminded that our Judaism and our connection with Torah and with Hashem, that's not something to be forgotten about. That's not something to be, that we can just say, oh, here we all have in common, so it's not that important anymore. It's not distinguishing. In Eretz Yisrael, even though it's something we all have in common, it's still what makes us family. And we're just reminded of that in that context. And I think that's why we greet each other differently.
Right.
And even the non-Jewish population of Israel, right? We have that connection with as Israelis. But certainly, Kal v'chomer, as Jews, right, in the Jewish state, I think that might be the reason why.
Right. And we should take that home with us. We should take that home when we come back to the States. We should take that home with us. When I go to shul in Queens, it shouldn't fade into the background that we're both Jewish. That feeling shouldn't fade into the background and only come to the forefront. Only come to the foreground when we go to Eretz Yisrael. We should take that with us, and B'ezrat Hashem, be able to connect with our fellow Jew and see them through the correct glasses. I should say so boldly, the correct glasses.
Yeah.
The correct glasses, even in Chutz La'aretz, even in here in America. Rabbi Yochanan, thank you, Dr. Glicksman, for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Rabbi Yochanan.
Yes.
Rabbi Yochanan today had the great idea that when we prepare for Shavuos, we were learning in Shir that when we prepare for Shavuos, Derech Eretz Kadma LaTorah. Derech Eretz comes before Torah. We have to prepare ourselves in our mitos first. So Rabbi Yochanan had a really nice idea today to learn about Shmiras HaLashon. So we spent a lot of time learning about Shmiras HaLashon today. And how it brings, the words that we use can bring Jews together or can separate Jews, depending on how you use your words. If you say nice things about each other, you could bring Jews together. If you say Lashon Hara about each other, it can tear us apart. Now, Yochanan, I know you have some really nice stories about the words that we use can bring us together. Previously, on a different episode, you spoke about the words you used to speak to a classroom, brought people together, and brought another student back to tefillah. Can you tell us about another time where the words that we used either brought you closer to someone or you brought someone closer to you? Can you tell us anything about that?
Yes.
Okay.
So I have a lot of stories of being nice. So I have one story. It's quite a long story. It started a long time ago. So me and this special friend. So I have a lot of friends in Makor and outside of Makor. So this specific friend, after Makor, we were hanging out with, and we were doing good, and he said that he said that when I look at you at Friday night, when I see you davening, I cry.
He said this to you?
Yeah. I cry. My son cries. He said I have two sons and they cried to me. They said they want to have same tefillah. They don't have same tefillah as me. And I know this person very, very well. And
How did that make you feel? How did that hit you?
it hit me good.
It hit you hard.
Yeah.
Right.
And I cried, but I went to the bathroom and I cried.
Wow.
Because I don't cry if I'm a father, because
How do you think he went home after that? Do you think he went home and really thought about what he said very long, or do you think he just said it and kind of went home and forgot about what he said?
so I think the end of davening, he said, when I come home, I'm gonna make sure that my family is gonna have the same tefillah as you. The way you're into davening, and yeah, and
That's fantastic. But the point I want to make is that sometimes when we say a nice thing to someone, when we say something maybe not so nice to someone, a compliment or an insult, sometimes we just say it and we go home and then we forget that we said it. This man hopefully went home and shared with his family how awesome your tefillah was. But a week later, I don't know if he was still thinking about it. You are here today still talking about that story and how much that hit you. And you know what that tells us? The words we use have a powerful effect on the other person more than we realize. Which is why we have to be so careful that what we say to another person is a nice, positive, uplifting thing. Because we can uplift the person, and if he would have said something not nice to you, would you still remember it? Probably.
yes.
Right? When someone says something to us that's not so nice, we remember that also. Right? He might go home and forget about it, but we remember that. Right?
Yeah.
This is so powerful, what someone said to you, to uplift. Right? What was he trying to tell you? He was trying to tell you that your davening was so uplifting, I want my children to be the same. And what did he do? He uplifted you even more. That's a powerful thing. That's a powerful thing, Yochi. Thank you so much for sharing that story.
You're
Thank
welcome.
you, Yochi.
Thank you.
Reb Shua. Reb Shua is one of the seniors in our shir and a reoccurring guest on this podcast. Reb Shua, can you tell us a story about a time where you were able to look at someone and connect with them and build a relationship with them in a way where maybe someone else wasn't able to see that person in the same way, but you looked at that person, you're like, I'm gonna say something nice to that person. I'm gonna say something that person needs to hear.
First off, I got to know Shabbai. And second of all, a story that I was just telling Rebbe just this morning in the office. One of my friends who I've known for about 6 years, I slowly said to the person, I appreciate for who you are and not for someone who you're not. And this person said to me, no one has ever said that to me before.
And you saw that person. You're
Yes.
like, I see you. I
For the
see
way
you.
you are.
I appreciate you for the way you are. And what did that mean to that person?
She's like, wow. Wasn't expecting that. Threw them off guard. And
And you made
it
their
felt
day.
very good.
You made their day. You made their day.
To the fact I
They
said
were
to them,
yeah.
hopefully I'm not the first to say that. Hopefully I'm not the last to say it. But if I am the last to
Hopefully
say it,
not.
I'll continue saying it.
Hopefully not. Hopefully not. Hopefully you're not the last person to say it.
But I'll continue saying it if that's what it takes.
But that's an incredible example of looking at someone and saying, you know what, that person needs to hear something nice. And I see that, and I'm gonna give it. I'm gonna make sure I say something nice.
Full-heartedly.
Because my words can be used as a powerful tool, and my words can also chas v'shalom be used
For the
as a negative tool. But I'm gonna make sure I use it as a powerful tool, because tomorrow, I was talking about with Yochi, tomorrow you might forget about this for a second, and in a couple of days you might forget about this for a second. In a week, you're for sure gonna forget about this for a second. In a month, you'll probably not be thinking about this, but that person is gonna continue to think about
For
the
eternity.
incredible thing that you said. And when you give that individual person value, that person can then come together and love all of Klal Yisrael. Like we said, Hashem gave each person value, counting each person in the Midbar, this week's Parsha.
Mm-hmm.
And then brought us all together by Matan Torah, coming up in a week for Shavuos. And then, many years later, when we took back Yerushalayim, which we celebrate today on Yom Yerushalayim, came back all together again. We came back all together. We can all then come to love each other. And with that schus of Ahavas Yisrael, and with that schus of saying nice things to each other, Bezrat Hashem, we should be zocha to see the Bayis HaShlishi.
Before Shavuos.
Before Shavuos, we will celebrate Shavuos together in Yerushalayim.
Yo,
Hopefully this year in Yerushalayim
Because
for Shavuos. And with that, from our family at the Makor College Experience to your families back at home, to all that are listening, we wish you a good Shabbos and a happy Yom Yerushalayim.